What up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Garage Game Day Sports Podcast. My name is Louie. I am your host. It is NFL kickoff day. Happy start of the NFL season, everybody. We are talking our AFC and NFC playoff predictions right on the eve of the NFL season. This is the equivalent of a kid turning in his NFL homework just minutes before the assignment is due. So bear with me. We're getting this in the day of, just hours before the Lions and Chiefs kickoff on NBC tonight. But before we get started, feel free to like us, comment, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Find us on all the socials, TikTok, Twitter, or X, and wherever you get your podcasts. We're available on any and all platforms, so be sure to check us out, give us a listen, let us know what you think of the show. We appreciate any and all feedback. Let's go ahead and dive right in. We'll start with the division with the reigning, defending Super Bowl champs. Let's start in the AFC, specifically the AFC West with the Kansas City Chiefs. And I've got them winning the division at 13-4. No real drama here. I do like the Chargers possibly to make some noise in this division. You've got uncertainty now with Travis Kelce. You don't know if he's good to go to play tonight. You don't know if this injury is going to linger into the season or become a recurring theme. You also don't know Chris Jones. His contract status, he's willing to sit out a chunk of games. He said he's willing to sit out 8 games. And I know that'll cost a chunk of change, but if he does do that, the Chiefs are in real trouble. He's the anchor of that defensive line, and I think that could definitely sway things. But for now, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I can't go off the Chiefs for the West. I have them at 13-4, and I know the uncertainty with Kelce. If he's not playing tonight, you're going to need receivers to step up, regardless of when he comes back. You're going to need receivers to step up. You've got Kadarius Toney, you've got Sky Moore. You know, you could see Isaiah Pacheco, guys like that catch the ball. Those running backs have more of a receiving role to help supplement the wide receiver room. But I just like what the Chargers, you've got one of the best coaches, maybe the best coach in the league in Andy Reid, best quarterback in the league, bar none, in Patrick Mahomes. So it's hard to bet against them. But you've just got playmakers all over the place. But the Kelce and Jones question marks will linger. And if that does, and the Chiefs and the Chargers, continue to improve on the offensive end, and I know it's kind of beating a dead horse with the Chargers. They're kind of like my Cowboys of the AFC. You know, a lot of question marks, but they're a popular dark horse pick every year. And we'll get to them a little bit later. But in the meantime, I've just got to roll with the Chiefs at 13-4, number 1 seed in the AFC, and of course your AFC West division winners. When I roll to the AFC East, this is going to be a bloodbath, man. This division is going to be a street fight. When you're looking at a Patriot team, that could possibly finish last, and they could still win 7, 8, 9 games, you know you're in for it. And, of course, with the roster moves the Jets and Dolphins have made, this was not an easy sell. This was not an easy decision for me to make. But I think with Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, that defense, I really like Sean McDermott. I just can't bet against the Bills yet because I have questions with the other teams, the other contenders in this division. With the Jets, it's a chemistry issue. Of course, you bring in Aaron Rodgers. How's he going to gel with that wide receiver core? You know, you have Garrett Wilson, and you have Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook on the offensive side of the ball, and you have skill players, but you have concerns along the offensive line. That offensive line, where they were injured, but when they weren't injured, they were still shaky. So it's a production issue for the offensive line, keeping Rodgers healthy and, more importantly, keeping him upright because he's no spring chicken. And then also with the Dolphins, it's injuries. You already have Jalen Ramsey, who you signed in the offseason. He was a big acquisition. You find out he could be out till December, ailing from his injury. And then, of course, you have Tua's health concerns, his concussion concerns. You know, if he gets injured again, it's maybe not just a season-ending injury. It could be a career-threatening injury. So too many question marks with those other teams, and I still like the core of the Bills. I think Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, I know you have Von Miller's going to be out for the first chunk of the season. He's still on the injured list, but I just like the Bills here. And it's kind of another case of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I like them to finish 12-5, the number 2 seed in the AFC and the winners of the AFC East, but we will not, spoiler alert, we are not done with that division just yet. Number 3 seed here, we're getting a little shakeup now. The 3 seed in the AFC. I've got the Baltimore Ravens winning the division at 11-6. And before You string me out to dry. We're not done with the Bengals either, and I'll tell you why the Ravens win out the division. They have a new look offense. You know, you bring in Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator from Georgia. You bring him in to help shake things up. You pay Lamar. Lamar got the bag, man. 5-year extension. So you're committing to Lamar Jackson, but you're also committing to a new look offense. You draft Zay Flowers, a speedster out of Boston College. You bring in OBJ, and yeah, he may just be a big name at this point and maybe not get you a ton of production, but teams still have to account for him. And that'll help open up the offense for Flowers, for Rashad Bateman, for the running game, for Lamar to take off and make plays with his legs like we know he can. He can sling the rock with his arm. He can make plays with his legs and extend plays. So that, along with bringing in Todd Monken, they have a strong offensive line, one of the best units in the NFL, and was the least penalized last year. They don't make a lot of mistakes. So I think that, paired up with Lamar Jackson and all the weapons he has, not to mention a pretty decent defense as well. I think he's going to need that because this North, like the East Division, is going to be a street fight, man. You're going to have tough games in and out. You could have every team finish well, there's an odd number of games now. You can't finish at 500, but I think you could have every team in this division finish 500 or better. So I think it's going to be a tightly packed division. I think you're going to have every team with multiple losses in the division because each one's going to be just a dogfight. So everyone's going to be pretty packed and tight, but I like the Ravens here at 11-6, champions of the North, and your number 3 seed in the AFC. Number 4, I don't see a lot of drama here except possibly one team dethroning this team, but I have the Jacksonville Jaguars at 11-6, winning the AFC South as the number 4 seed. The only team I think that's ready to give them competition is the Tennessee Titans, and it's pretty much a 2-horse race. The other 2 teams breaking in new head coaches, breaking in rookie quarterbacks, and in the sense of the Texans, I think they're a year or 2 away. I really like what they're doing, and I like DeMeco Ryans as a head coach. I think the Colts are a little further down the road. The Texans could be an immediate threat in a year or 2, but right now I just like the Jaguars. You bring in Calvin Ridley, who is out, for a year. But if he's back to the way he was pre-suspension, he adds another layer to this offense. We saw Trevor Lawrence really step up his play last year and very efficient down the stretch. And I know he had the rough first half against the Chargers, but the discipline and the play to bring them back in that wild card game against the Chargers told me a lot about Trevor Lawrence. Of course, we know back to his Clemson days what he's been capable of doing. So I think they're a considerable favorite to win the division. And they just have the offensive firepower to really take down anybody in the South. I do like what the Titans did, adding DeAndre Hopkins, and of course you still have Treylon Burks, Derrick Henry. But I just like the Jaguars here. I think they run away with it late, maybe win the division by 2 or 3 games. But I've got the Jaguars, my 4 seed. Brings me to my wild cards. Remember I said we weren't done with the North and the East? I meant it. The Cincinnati Bengals snatched the first wild card spot, and the 5 seed, I predict, will be 11-6. And if you remembered right, I had the Baltimore Ravens also at 11-6. That's what I said about a tightly packed AFC North. The Ravens would win the virtue by a tiebreaker, sending the Bengals to the wild card. But I still like Joe Burrow. You have the most elite wide receiver trio in the league, of course, with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. Burrow, I do have a little bit of concern if this calf becomes an issue or if it hobbles him early on in the season. They do have a couple of division games, and I want to say Baltimore is on the early slate. That would be a key game for the Ravens to get, especially if Burrow's still not 100%. I really like Zach Taylor as head coach, and Joe Burrow should be one of the favorites for the MVP if he stays healthy. They've been here before. They have the experience. So while I have the Ravens winning, I can't see the Bengals missing the playoffs entirely unless, knock on wood, something happens with Burrow or a big injury or something very unforeseen happens with the Bengals. I don't see them missing the playoffs entirely. So give me the Bengals as the 5 seed. The Jets, the New York Jets, are my 6 seed at 11-6. We harped on the O-line injury and production concerns. And that's, of course, going to be key for Rodgers, especially at his age. You're going to want to keep Rodgers healthy. You need stability on that offensive line. And while they didn't really address it, too much during the draft. I still think Rodgers has the weapons on offense as well as the defensive skill players to keep this team afloat and competitive and win ball games in the East. We saw what the Jets did last year with Zach Wilson. I believe they won, 6 or 7 games with Wilson at quarterback. So I think Rodgers, of course, a huge upgrade at the quarterback position. You also bring in Dalvin Cook at running back because Breece Hall is banged up. We don't know how much time he'll miss, but that's a 1-2 punch. You bring in Cook to supplement Breece Hall at running back, so that gives you a fresh set of legs there. And, of course, Garrett Wilson, I look to have a huge year at wide receiver with Rodgers throwing them the rock. So I like the Jets at 11-6, my number 6 seed. My 7th and final AFC team, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I have 3 AFC North teams making the playoffs. 2 11-6 teams, a 10-7 team, which would mean the Browns would be the odd man out. Probably 7-10, 8-9. If all these teams are stacking wins, one of them's got to take some losses. So still a very competitive North. But I really like the way they closed the year last year. I thought Kenny Pickett played extremely well. He was very efficient down the stretch. Only 1 or 2 picks, I think, the last 6 or 7 games. The games that he played from start to finish, because I think he missed one. You have George Pickens at tight end, of course, Najee Harris. You draft Darnell Washington. We'll see if he supplants Pat Freiermuth at tight end, or if not, they run a lot of tight end sets. Do have a stable offensive line. They added Jalen Warren, so I think him and Najee Harris can be a nice 1-2 punch, change it back. And hopefully you have a healthy TJ Watt this year. I know TJ Watt fought a lot of injuries, was banged up last year. So I think you couple that with the weapons they have on offense, hopefully a healthy defense, and a good young secondary. I really love Mike Tomlin. I think he's one of the best coaches in the NFL. Underrated, I think, because he's not really talked about too much, but he constantly has the Steelers in and around the playoff picture. So I really like the Steelers to sneak in this year at 10-7. They snatched the 7th seed. I really like Pittsburgh there to take the last spot. So Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, Jaguars, Bengals, Jets, Steelers, my 1-7, my playoff teams in the AFC. Now switching to the NFC, I was back and forth on this one, but I decided to hedge my bet, and I'm going with the Philadelphia Eagles ever so narrowly to win the NFC East at 12-5. I know you got to replace some starters on defense. You have to replace 5 starters. You lost Javon Hargrave to the 49ers, so that's pretty much a net double loss because you lose him to Philly and then you give him to you lose him to one of your main competitors in the NFC in the 49ers. C.J. Gardner-Johnson left to go to the Lions, but you still have a proven head coach, an explosive offense, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, running back by committee approach, really with the loss of Miles Sanders to Carolina, and Nick Sirianni's a heck of a coach. And you still have Jalen Hurts, who's the best quarterback in the NFC. As far as league-wide, I'm not sure. Maybe top 5, top 6, depending how high in regard you hold the AFC quarterbacks. But then in the NFC, there's not a ton of resistance there as far as best quarterback in the NFC. And when you have that, you have an easier path to the top of the NFC. And I like the Eagles to finish first in the NFC East, 12-5. Matching them with identical 12-5 records, I have the San Francisco 49ers winning the NFC West. I think top to bottom, they have one of the most talented rosters in the entire league. When you look at the skill players that they have on offense, on defense, and I know Brock Purdy is your quarterback 1, and Sam Darnold is your quarterback 2. You shipped off Trey Lance to the Cowboys. He's now their quarterback 3, at least for now. So I think if you have at least average play from your quarterback, hoping it's Purdy, if he comes back and is true to form like last year, or if he does get injured or hobbled or something and he's got to miss some time, you have a proven, capable, competent backup in Sam Darnold that could hopefully keep the ship afloat. But you just have a ton of skill players everywhere. McCaffrey, Kittle, Deebo Samuel. You've got Eric Armstead and Fred Warner and Nick Bosa, and now you bring in Javon Hargrave from the Eagles. You've just got an embarrassment of riches. Tafanga in the secondary. You've just got a ton of talent that I think even if you get average play, which could be a possibility. I know Purdy set the world on fire last year. Major props for him coming in and riding the ship for the 49ers. They just ran into a ton of bad luck with injuries in the playoffs. But if you get at least average quarterback play from Purdy or Darnold, whoever it is, because teams are going to have film now on Brock Purdy, so you won't have the element of surprise per se going into matching up with other teams in the playoffs. They're going to have film on him. But I think if you get at least average play, they're going to be very competitive. They'll be the front runners in the NFC West and Super Bowl contenders, contenders to get out of the NFC. So I like the 49ers as the 2 seed. Number 3, coming out of the NFC North, the Detroit Lions at 11-6. They closed the year very strong last year. Dan Campbell's unit did some work. I really like him as a head coach. I think the players respond well to him. I think they play well for him. He got the most out of Jared Goff last year. Amon-Ra St. Brown really had a breakout year, and I think he'll duplicate that and maybe even surpass his numbers for last year. You have David Montgomery. You bring him in at running back, and you draft Jahmyr Gibbs, so you have a nice 1-2 punch there. Aiden Hutchinson anchors the defense. That pass rusher, he can bring the heat on opposing quarterbacks. And with the division, you did lose. If your other teams in the division, you did lose, quite a bit. Of course, the Packers lost Aaron Rodgers, who the Lions eliminated last year, by the way, in Lambeau the last week of the season. So huge props for the Lions for showing out for that game when they didn't have to. They had been eliminated just hours before that game even kicked. They still had the drive to take out Green Bay in Lambeau. I think that carries over. You have that momentum now. That carries over into this year. You address the secondary. You have a stout defensive line, and you've got skill players. So I really like the Lions to come out of this division. I think the Vikings were a bit fraudulent last year. They won 13 games, but I think a lot of them were close games. The Bears, I'm not sure are quite ready just yet because they only won 3 games last year, and expecting them to jump to 9 or 10 wins is a really big ask. And then, of course, Green Bay losing Rodgers. They're a young team that's on the rise, but a very young team. So I do like the Lions to take the North 11-6. In the South, a bit of a surprise team because I notice a lot of people are picking the Saints to win the division. I'm going with the Atlanta Falcons at 10-7. Okay, they have an easy schedule. They draw their own division, which of course includes Tampa Bay, which is going to be pretty bad, I think, this year, and Carolina, which could be tricky, but they do have a rookie quarterback. So there'll be growing pains there. And I think Atlanta has the higher ceiling when it comes to the offense than the Saints. I know the Saints have, the sexy players. They have the Alvin Kamara's, the Michael Thomas, but there's a lot of question marks with Kamara's suspension, Thomas's injury history. And I think when you draft Bijan Robinson, you make a commitment to the run and a commitment to the offense. You have a stout offensive line, one of the best offensive lines, easily a top 10 unit in the NFL. By drafting Bijan Robinson, you have Tyler Algier, who rushed for 1,000 yards as a rookie, by the way. That is very hard to do. I think you still commit to him and you get him touches, but Bijan Robinson, you run the ball. He could be involved in the pass game. You still have Kyle Pitts, Cordero Patterson, kind of that Swiss Army knife, Drake London, who you drafted out of USC a couple of years ago. They've got a ton of offensive talent, and I think the offensive line is stable enough and good enough that will play well, will protect Desmond Ridder. And I think with a commitment to the run game, it kind of allows Ridder to pick and choose his spots. He doesn't have to throw the ball 30, 35, 40 times. I think you commit to the run, you set up play action, you kind of open things up for Ridder, and he's able to pick and choose his spots. I think he'll be more efficient and a better quarterback when he's able to do that. And the run game opens things up for the pass game. So I like Atlanta here at 10-7. I think average play is all you need from Ridder, as long as he just doesn't stink and throw multiple interceptions, multiple games, and it's a real fight to get him to be productive. I think if he's just average, I think the Falcons take the NFC South at 10-7. Going to my wild cards, I've got the Dallas Cowboys. My Cowboys. It pained me to pick the Eagles, but I was hedging my bets, if you will. Either the Eagles win and I'm right, or the Cowboys win and I'm wrong, but my team wins the division. So I kind of hedged it that way. But the Cowboys still make the division. They're too talented not to. You still have one of the best quarterbacks in the NFC in Dak Prescott, a top 10, top 12 quarterback. in Dak Prescott. You, of course, lose Dalton Schultz to the Texans at tight end, but I think you may even have a better athlete, an overall athlete in Jake Ferguson. You still have Peyton Hendershot. You draft Luke Schoonmaker at tight end, so you've got plenty of depth there. But the two big moves, of course, the big splashes in free agency, we're bringing in Brandon Cooks at wide receiver and signing Stephon Gilmore to help with a secondary opposite Trevon Diggs. So I think those are huge moves. I think they add to the wide receiver core, but you also help take pressure off CeeDee Lamb because last year Lamb was the unquestioned number one. He was the guy, and you had Gallup coming off a major injury the year before. And speaking of him, he has another year to recoup after that. So he's kind of gotten used to the ebb and flow of the offense now post-injury. So I think that trio of wide receivers can really do it and really help create separation and help Dak Prescott with the big plays. And I do like Tony Pollard now that he's the unquestioned running back one. You could see some gadget plays, some regular plays for Deuce Vaughn, Rico Dowdle, your running back 2 or 3, depending which way they go on the depth chart. Will eat some carries, but Pollard's your workhorse. I think he can do it. He's more than capable of doing it. And I think if you commit to the run a little bit more and then you open things up for the pass game, those interceptions will decrease. Remember, Dak led the league in interceptions last year. I don't expect that to be the case this year, and if he tones down those interceptions, I think the Cowboys are more than capable of contending in the NFC East, and they're one of, I think, 3 true contenders to make the Super Bowl, with the Eagles and 49ers being the other 2. And then, of course, you have the monster Micah Parsons. Him and DeMarcus Lawrence in that pass rush. Parsons can pretty much do it all. One of the best overall players in the league, maybe the best overall player in the league. But I've got the Cowboys my number 5 seed, 11-6 on the year, but would not surprise me if they passed up the Eagles to win the East. My 6th seed, I like the Seahawks at 10-7. I think Geno Smith, I don't think it was an aberration last year, him playing as well as he did. He threw for 30 touchdowns, and he actually led the NFC in passing touchdowns, if you believe it. You add to his offense, you draft Jackson Smith and Jigba out of Ohio State. So now you've got your own 3-headed monster at receiver with DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and now JSN. You also draft Zach Charbonnet at running back. So that helps supplement the running game. You had Devin Witherspoon at corner. You drafted him out of Illinois. That helps the secondary. And I just like I still like Pete Carroll as a head coach. I think he gets the most out of Geno Smith. I think by drafting JSN, you make a commitment to the passing game. And I don't think Geno, that season's a flash in the pan. Maybe he doesn't throw for 30 touchdowns this year, but if you can get consistent production out of him, 24, 26 touchdowns, 28 touchdowns, the Seahawks will be contenders. They may hang around the NFC West race. I'm not ready to totally dismiss the 49ers there. I think they get it done by multiple games, but the Seahawks definitely in the wildcard race, and I like them to be my number 6 seed, a 10-7 record in the NFL this season. And my last team, I was on the fence for a bunch of teams. I thought about the Vikings. I thought about the Giants. I thought about the Bears. But I ultimately decided on this team. And dang it, if the NFC South isn't going to send 2 teams to the playoffs, the New Orleans Saints at 9-8 snagged the 7th and final spot in the NFC. I think a 6 or 7 win improvement for the Bears is a lot to ask. The Vikings, I know, won a lot of close games, but they lost a lot of pieces. And the Giants, while I think they might improve and they may actually be better than last year, I don't think their record shows it. So I think they suffer a slight decrease on the win total from last year. That opens the door for Nolans, for the Saints, for Derek Carr, and the New Orleans Saints. I think Carr's the best quarterback in that division. And like I mentioned earlier, I think you have a lot of question marks on offense. Michael Thomas, is he going to be injured like he seems to be every year? He misses a chunk of time. Alvin Kamara, he's going to miss the first few games of the season, and when he does come back, what's he going to be like? You signed Jamal Williams to help maybe alleviate the running back woes there. But I just like the Saints, best quarterback in the division. You have an easy slate. You draw the NFC South, you draw the AFC South, and then they also have winnable games against the Rams and Giants, based on their division places last year. You take on teams that may not be as good as they were last year, and the Rams, I think, are going to be terrible. So those are winnable games for the Saints. So top to bottom, or at least playoff-wise, 1 through 7, Eagles, 49ers, Lions, Falcons, Cowboys, Seahawks, Saints are my 1 through 7 in the NFC. And we already touched up on the AFC. My Super Bowl picks right now. I wish that I could say my Dallas Cowboys, and it would be an awesome surprise if they do this. But if I had to put money right now, I'm going to say a Bills 49ers Super Bowl right now. Bills 49ers is my official Super Bowl pick just hours before the season kicks off. But please, please, Cowboys, come through for me this year. I get all the hate for being a Cowboys fan, for not winning in 25 years, yet I can very vaguely remember the last Super Bowl win for the Cowboys. I was about, 7 or 8 years old. Can't do the math off the top of my head right now. But I get all the pain and torment of being a Cowboys fan without the actual rewards of remembering all those Super Bowl wins, and only the last one I can even vaguely remember. So please, Cowboys, let's do it. Let's get it done this year. But Bills 49ers, my official Super Bowl pick for this year. We'll see how right or wrong I am. More than likely wrong, but hey, what the heck. But that'll do it for this episode of Garage Game Day Sports. My name is Louie. Feel free to check us out on the socials. We're very active on Twitter, X, TikTok also. Check out our little videos. We drop some informational bombs and also some funny stuff too, so check us out. And also wherever you get your podcasts, we're on iHeartRadio, we're on Spotify, Amazon, Google. Feel free to check us out. Drop us comments. Let us know what you think of the show. Let us know if you like our takes, if our takes are garbage, whatever. It's all opinion. It's all for fun. So I look forward to any and all comments. But this is Louie signing off. Wishing your team a good luck this season. We're all undefeated. Let's enjoy it because it's the last day we can say that all 32 NFL teams are undefeated. We'll see you guys on the other side for Garage Game Day Sports. This is Louie signing off. See you guys next time.